TBI Butterflies, Healing Conversations.
Welcome to TBI Butterflies Healing Conversation. My name is Lolly. I'm your host. I am accompanied by my dear friend and special guest and TBI survivor, Faith.
Hello.
Glad to have you back. We
Thank
just
you.
did an episode on TBI, emotions after TBI. And just to clarify, we are not medical professionals, nor are we pretending to be medical professionals. We are TBI survivors. And our experience really is the big question mark that everybody doesn't understand. So we're here to help share with you what our experience has been like to help bridge the perspective, so to speak. So with that being said, we felt it was a responsibility to follow up with the episode on dealing with emotions after brain injury and what that was like, and actually give you some practical ways to manage those emotions, both as a survivor and as caregivers, because our emotions are big and heavy for the caregivers, right? So, with that being said, to help you kind of understand just to be able to engage with the illogical and irrational and the intensity of all of those emotions. Because first, we have to be honest with ourselves that our emotions are oftentimes intensely illogical and irrational, especially in context to the internal or environmental stimuli. And what I mean by that is that when what we experience as brain injury survivors, as discussed in the last episode. And I would encourage you to go through all of the episodes as we continue, because there will be threads like a rug, right? And they will all kind of tie into each other because this is so complex. But what I mean by that is that the internal stimuli and the emotions that are created because of it, and how we're engaging in the environment inside of ourselves, and the environment that we're engaging with externally, and the emotions that are being created by that. And basically coming up with ideas and sharing through our experiences what we have learned to be able to manage our brain injuries. So, with that being said, we had to learn positive coping skills that we had never imagined we'd have to learn. We've had to learn how to communicate our needs, and we've had to relearn what our needs were. So, Faith, if there was any one thing just right off the bat on the top of your head, what would you want to share in helping a TBI survivor in being able to manage their emotions after brain?
I think one of the things is looking at it as the state of where the person's at in their recovery. Are they first able to feel the emotions? Are the emotions out of place? So maybe the comment is not all for laughter, but I laugh at something that's completely appropriate
Right.
because that's the emotion that I'm feeling. And it may not warrant the situation that's happening, but that's just what's coming up because I'm not processing correctly. I'm not able to process fully. Um, So I think that's the first thing to look at. And
You lost it?
I lost it.
Oh, yeah, you should have seen. She just gave me a little face like, I lost that. Like you said, being able to just try to do our best to recognize where we're at, right? And to acknowledge that as a brain injury survivor, we might not even know where we're at. And we're just doing our best to put one foot in front of the other. As I always say, as my mantra is, one step, one breath, one moment at a time. Because sometimes a day is too long. And we've just got to take it literally moment by moment, breath by breath, step by step. So, as we talk about, brain injury and the emotions that come afterward, they are so intense that sometimes it feels like we're not going to be able to get them under control and, really be able to manage them. I like to use the word manage rather than control, because
Yes.
we can't really control our emotions. They're going to come in and we can't stop that. So we have to learn how to manage that, same thing with our thoughts. And so one of the things that I would say is like really being intentional about how we're maneuvering through our life is actually a really important coping skill and and technique and approach in managing our emotions, because our emotions are deeply affected by our brain battery and our ability to process information. And so we have to learn to navigate our environments better so that I'm not placing myself in an environment that's going to have a lot of overlapping sounds or people in my spatial awareness walking around me and I don't know where they're at. So it's creating an intense anxiety for me. Or being in a place where loud music is really loud and it's too loud and it's really, I can feel it in my body and it's hurting me, right? Or even lights. Just being or just making sure that we're not in stressful situations. And if we do find ourselves in those, that we work on getting ourselves out of them as quickly as possible. These are ways that we learn to manage our emotions because, like with our brain battery, we have limitations. We have a lot of limitations. And unless we're honest with ourselves, like I said before, we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to kind of accept that we have these limitations. And if we can't be honest about that, then that's going to be very challenging to navigate and manage our emotions. So this is why that is absolutely one way that we manage this.
And I think this is um, a good way to do that for me was first, in the beginning, was just having awareness. And I did that with therapy. I
Yes.
like so much therapy. And I know I'm just going to put this plug in. Lolly does coaching sessions.
Yes, I am a
And
traumatic brain injury life coach.
and I thought in the beginning, I don't need therapy. Who needs therapy? Like for cognition and being able to process stuff. And I was just like, I don't need that. So it took me several months before I actually started therapy. And when I started therapy, I was just like, wow, now I'm really learning how to even acknowledge the emotions, how to just be in that space. And I have somebody who is able to guide me and help me understand. And when I'm in a place of awareness or non-awareness, and I might not even understand for myself. So they're being able to help me get into a spot where I can acknowledge my own emotions and where I can just be in a space where I can even pick up on them.
Right.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah. It was, and having, I would recommend anybody that has a brain injury to find a TBI counselor that's a specialist in brain injury.
absolutely. Yes.
That saved my life, that saved your life,
Yes.
and that is also a way that we can manage our emotions. And I know that we're giving you all right now just some other ways of like environment and this and that. We're not actually telling you like breath work or this or that, because these are very real aspects that will help you manage your emotions as a brain injury survivor. These aren't things that we're talking about that we went down the, oh, I'm going to try breath work, I'm going to go walk into nature, and I'm going to exercise, and I'm going to communicate, and I'm going to do. Those were a lot of mental health positive coping skills for me, and they were very, actually in many ways became more depressing for me. They didn't help me manage my emotions as well. And I had to learn that brain injury has a whole different level of positive coping skills and a whole different set of ways that I need to manage my emotions and how to truly manage my emotions. Because let's be honest and let's be real. When the emotions come in and they're that intense, we might not be able to come back from that moment. And that's why we talk about the TBI rage, but that also deals with the depression and the anxiety and the panic attacks, right? And the self-loathing and the self-misery and the self-doubt and the insecurities. All of these those generate emotions for us, very deep emotions for us that are challenging to navigate, let alone identify. Right? So that's why it's also important to, be aware of our environments. But as Faith said earlier about becoming aware, right? One of the first things that I do as a brain injury life coach and consultant is I gauge your presence. How present are you? Are you able cognitively to be present? And how can I help you reconnect with yourself so that you can become aware? And what I mean by aware is really begin to observing within your mind space with intention. Intentionality is a really big part of brain injury. If we don't start moving with a little bit more intention, where we're responding instead of reacting, people will hear me talk about that all the time. It's the intention, slowing it down because it's
Oh, yeah.
moving too fast. It's all of that information coming in too fast. It's slowing it down. So when I show up intentionally in my mind space and I become an observer, then I'm becoming aware of my mind space and my body space. What am I'm just watching what I'm thinking and feeling. And then I begin to acknowledge it. This is what I'm observing is there. Then I have to go through the process of labeling it and identifying, right? And you said earlier, what are the questions that you ask yourself?
I ask myself, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it in my body? Is this an emotion? Am I triggered by something outside of myself where I can just let the emotion go? Maybe somebody had a bad day and it's just rubbing off on me. You know what I mean? Like, is this really something that I want to be feeling? And then what do I do with it now?
Right, right. And there are empaths out there. We'll just kind of drop this little nugget in there for a second. But there are empaths out there that they may have to ask the question is, who does it belong to? Is this emotion actually mine? And I think a lot of people will actually do that anyways. But that's like a whole other level of identification. But asking these questions: what am I feeling? Where do I feel it? Who does it belong to? What do I do with it now? That's the identification process, right? And then we get into the accepting that the thoughts and the emotions are even real. That we're feeling these things and where we're feeling them, and we're thinking these things and why, generated by emotion, right?
And the complex, I feel like it's so complex because brain injuries are like fingerprints.
Right,
Each one is different, each one is unique. So I might see that my friend is feeling these emotions, but that doesn't mean that I'm going through the same process as them.
right,
And I think that's one of the things that makes it challenging because there are symptoms that are similar in brain injuries,
right.
but there are also things that are unique to each individual. So even if I read a book or watch something on TV on brain injury, there might be pieces, little nuggets in there that relate to me, but there might be a whole lot that doesn't. And that's why it's so important to get individual care on managing and identifying and working through these.
Right. And as you're learning to accept these thoughts and your emotions, and that everyone is going to be unique in their own experience.
Yes.
Right. And so to give yourself the compassion and grace to travel this path in your own unique way, not the way Faith went or the way Lolly went, but your own way. And when some people will have the cognitive level to go through the process of becoming aware, and others won't, right? And so as we're talking about the accepting part, though, I want to talk about how, and this isn't just brain injury, this is anyone. Well, when we get to this acceptance of our thoughts and our emotions, a lot of times we will just deny them and we will bypass them. And so that's why it's so important that we accept them. We embrace that they are part of us. This is something we are experiencing, and it does require communication and management. So that if we can, if we can communicate it the best ways we can, I would always suggest in the bullying prevention work that I've always done is calmly and confidently, or even express if you're not confident, that just be vulnerable and say, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I'm experiencing, and just give them the ability or the opportunity to try to understand us.
And that the ability to be able to express the emotion that you're feeling can take years of healing and therapy just to
Yes,
get to that point. So I want to make
yes,
sure that people
yes,
understand.
yes. And I've had to teach people ways like, um if to communicate their emotions, like as a brain, especially in the rage, a green card or a yellow card. What are your to communicate to the other person? What are you feeling today? Do you have the capacity? Right. There's another really great way to communicate our brain battery so that our caregivers can support us better with the understanding that when our brain battery depletes, that we are actually at risk of becoming emotionally dysregulated.
Yes.
And not actually at risk, but when it depletes, we do become emotionally dysregulated. So if they can learn where we are, like the spoon theory is a really good way to be able to communicate, that, I only have 10 spoons a day, but it might take me 2 spoons to get out of bed. And it helps you really be able to understand what activities take how much energy away from us. And that if I don't have 10 spoons and I've used all my spoons and I don't have spoons to give anymore. And I need to rest so that I can have more spoons. And that's a lot of the spoon theory. So ways that we can communicate is our emotions is really very important. And that can be done verbally and non-verbally. I have a client of mine that every time he's getting to the point that he can't process anymore, so he's getting it to a point where he's going to rage and he's feeling it build, he will put his hand up and his finger on his nose. And it's a good indicator to his wife that he is no longer able to process and engage in what's happening. But he had to go through the awareness and the acknowledgement and the identifying and the accepting so that he could communicate it, so that then he could go manage that, take a brain break, disengage, right?
Yeah.
One of the best ways that we can do, for caregivers, like how can caregivers?
And I think that, like Lolly just said, how he had a client who puts his hand up in the air and puts his finger on his nose, that's an indication to the caregiver, let me take a step back and just hold space for this person. In this moment, I'm not going to try to respond. I'm not going to try to fix the situation. I'm just going to give this person space to be able to work through their own emotion and process it, and understanding that that's the steps that they need to be able to come back to me and have a conversation. Maybe later on, it may be the next day. It may, and it's really being able to identify that in the traumatic brain injury survivor.
100%.
Yeah.
Giving them the ability to, really create that space and really observe in their survivor. Learn your survivor. Pay attention to your survivor. Listen to your survivor. If you really want to help us manage our emotions, so especially for you, right? Because I can only imagine what it's like to be actually, I do imagine you've been on the other side of me. I've been on the other side, right? And so, like, being able to truly, understand that. And another way is asking us, how can you support us? I may say I need space. I may say that I don't know how you can support me. Well, in that moment, maybe ask some questions. If you see me start getting more irritable, then I'm having trouble processing. That's a good point for you to take some space, because I can't process the words coming out of your mouth. It doesn't matter what you're saying. It's that I'm so depleted. These are indicators for caregivers to watch for. When I start getting a distant, glassy stare, I am depleting. Maybe it's not a good time to have the conversation about the trip in 2 weeks, right? Like, these are ways to help us manage our emotions and prevent intense emotions by honoring our limitations, but really asking how you can support us. And sometimes we just really need love. And we really feel unlovable big time. We really feel unlovable. So if you just kind of lean in and ask us for support, give us agency, give us autonomy. If we get angry, that's an indicator we don't know. Ask if we'd like a hug. And don't be hurt if we deny it. It's not about you. It's that we might not be able to handle the sensory. In the beginning, I couldn't let my ex-wife touch me. Couldn't handle the sensory, right? And so being able to manage it, I think, is the next piece. And this is where I want to give some of the things that I've learned, not only in brain injury recovery and coping skills, but as in mental health, because they are helpful. One of the things that I really learned, especially for the rage, is to throw a very slow, the slowest, hardest punch you've ever thrown. And in fact, every time I thought I was going slow enough, my therapist would say, slow it down. So that I actually start shaking in my arm. And sometimes I'll actually throw a second one because I'm getting this energy out. And I'll breathe. I have to breathe through it because it's so tense. And then I'll always get to the end and I'll reach my fingers out till the very end and I just feel the energy leave my fingertips, right? Like I just feel like somebody's pulling from the end of my fingers as my hands are all the way out. That was a really powerful, positive coping skill. There was another one that really helped me is you talked about feeling in the body. Where is it? Where do I feel it? My God, this one was so powerful when my trauma therapist taught me this. He said, close your eyes. Feel where you feel it. It could be in my heart. It could be in my shoulder. It could be in my hip. It could be in my gut. It could be in all of those areas. And he would say, just the grabber claw from when we were kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's like, look at it like just going inside of yourself. Use your mind space and pluck it out of you. And go set it across the room in a chair and just visualize it or set it outside. Or sometimes it was so intense. The emotion was so intense. And this was how he taught me how to manage intense emotions. Sometimes I would have to set it off of this planet because it was so intense that off of this planet, I could still feel it.
Yeah.
And I have to feel it in order to heal it. I have to feel it in order to process it so I can release it. Right?
Yeah.
And what this did is it gave me the capacity to tolerate the intolerable intensity of the emotion so that I could stay present and not disassociate, so that I could feel the emotion in fullness, so I could process it and release it. Powerful positive coping skill. Huge. Another way that I would share with people to manage your emotions is breath work, really breath work.
Yes.
Like it does calm your central nervous system if you're intentional about it. But you've got to break away and you've got to go inside your mind space. You got to close your eyes. You've got to feel the breath coming in. You got to feel it expand your lungs because what it does is it also reconnects you to your body. Because those emotions can become so intense that we were disconnecting from our bodies.
Yes. And sometimes for me, it's just having patience. Um, because like Lolly said, he liked to throw the punch. I was more of like a tactile sensation type of person. So I would get bean bags and go outside in the backyard and throw them. I would have an area that I would throw them at. So that way I could feel the energy, the release of that emotion. And then when I got to a point where I was able to really start understanding emotions a little more, because you remember for a while I had no emotion and then I started feeling it, I would start to name it, or I would just I'd feel the emotion and then I would speak out loud what I felt the emotion was.
This is perfect. Go on.
And sometimes what I would come up with didn't even make sense, but it was my mind, my left and my right brain trying to connect with each other and trying to understand what is it that I'm even feeling. And that was powerful.
So one of the most important things is we cannot suppress our emotions.
Yes.
You talk about acknowledging them is we're giving ourselves permission and compassion and grace to feel the things that we're feeling. We cannot deny and suppress these emotions. They have to express.
Yes.
That's why it's called expression. We have to express. Think of it like this. If you take a beach ball that you blew up and you hold it underwater, what's it going to do? It's going to push back.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to constantly push back on you. Now, I hold that for a day, a week, a month. Who's going to win? Me or the beach ball? The beach ball is going to win. Eventually, I'm going to tire out and it's going to come up. I can no longer suppress it. Here's another really good analogy. If I dropped a 2-liter soda bottle and I dropped it on the ground and it didn't explode, the pressure would build. I could drop it 10 more times. The pressure is continuing to build and build and build and build. We have to express our emotions, because what's going to happen is one day it's going to drop, or it might not drop, and somebody just comes and flicks it, and it's at the critical mass, and it explodes. And that flick is me calling you and just, actually, without getting into the story, is that you called me, I was at critical mass, and you needed some help to talk about some things, and I didn't have the ability or capacity, and I TBI raged the shit out of you.
Yes.
And you gave me some space, which is a really good lesson on the caregiver's part, right?
Yes.
But that is a perfect example of I was an overpressurized soda bottle, and I needed to twist the cap and vent it out. And I was at max capacity. And so just you calling me to vent was that flicking of my cap, and I exploded, and it didn't matter what was around or who was around, and it was messy and it was mean and it was nasty. Right? And so that's why we have to twist the cap. We've got to communicate. That's a really powerful positive coping skill as well. Please continue to communicate no matter how much they do not understand you. If you keep it inside, then you're stopping the ability from them one day maybe being able to understand you.
Yes.
We cannot stop searching to be understood. We cannot stop searching to find connectivity and belongingness with self and with others. Now, granted, they may not ever understand, and we've got to accept that for ourselves, but they can get glimpses, and they can learn to support us in these ways by giving space, by asking how to support us. Another way that I would encourage you to manage your emotions is grounding. There's a lot of scientific research in its in how it can help regulate the central nervous system, create blood flow, and all of the things in creating harmony within our bodies. Grounding, taking your feet, or you can get grounding sheets for your bed, connect to Mother Earth. Take your socks and shoes off. Put your feet in the dirt. Imagine roots going into the ground and until you become rooted, and then ask Mother Earth to take what doesn't serve you and ask her to replenish what does. We come from this earth. We are of the dirt, right?
Yes.
And so there's a lot of scientific research to the benefits of grounding. Other ways that I would even screaming. If you need to get it out, just scream at the top of your lungs and get it out. Hugging yourself, tapping helps regulate our body's central nervous system, right? Other ways that we can manage our emotions is positive self-talk. Recognize that we're speaking negatively to ourselves, and just consistently, day in and day out, all day, every day, speak love and health into ourselves, reminding ourselves that we're worth loving, and finding the evidence of all the things against our negative self-talk, because it's usually a lie. And we can find the evidence. If I feel like I'm unlovable because I raged on somebody today, then I look at all of my family and friends that have given me compassion and grace when I have raged.
Yes.
And they have reminded me that I am lovable, right? Or if I don't think that I can get through this moment, then I look back at my life and I tell myself I have overcome 100% of everything that I have ever gone through. We forget that. These are positive ways. I can't think of any others off the top of my head. Oh, meditation, yoga, qigong, tai chi, all really great ways to regulate the body and the mind space, and to really reconnect with ourselves. Because remember, in the last episode, we talked about redeveloping emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually. That all of these things are very important. It's so complex. Our emotions are being impacted by countless variables.
And it's also remembering that even though it might be a positive emotion, the process of trying to understand the emotion can be frustrated. So you could be frustrating. So you could have just had a really positive experience, but now you're left with, what is this emotion? How am I going to process? What do I do with it? And that in itself is frustrating and can be frustrating. So even though it was a positive experience, you could still have a negative response.
That is powerful. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that. There's one last thing I want to share, and nutrition and rest.
Yes.
We have to have nutrition and rest. If the body is fed appropriately, then the brain can operate appropriately, which means it can regulate its emotions. It can rebuild. We need to feed the brain right. They say the stomach is the first brain. Brain cannot be nourished if we aren't nourishing it. So we need to give it appropriate nutrients, the appropriate supplements, things like that, feeding the brain, getting rest and sleep and honoring that brain battery, giving what does the body do when it sleeps? It repairs, it rewires. So give your brain the ability to do that so that you can show up more regulated. Plus, what do they say? What happens when we're sleep deprived? We're angry. We don't have cognition. So being able to recognize those areas as well, and just to get our body into the most primed ability for us to have a better quality of life and for us to be able to just function. So I hope these have been helpful ways in which we can probably do several other episodes and most likely will.
And if you found something that particularly works for you, drop it in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. The more we share as a community, the better we can grow and learn and help each other. We're all floundering like fish out of water, not knowing where we're at or what happened to us. So, if somebody else figured out that I need to flap my tail to the right and then to the left and to the right, like the cheat code to Mike Tyson's Punch Out, share it so that it flips me back into the water. All right. Help me breathe again. So I hope we're helping you breathe again. And with that, thank you for being a part of this podcast again. And we look forward to many other episodes. You all be well. My name is Lolly.
This is Faith. Be well.
Have a wonderful day.